Oh, good lord, where to even start with this one? Well, I'm going to start with the fact that this is scripted because I want to make sure I don't get my words all jumbled together and whatnot. And the script is about 19 pages long! To put that in comparison with the Mario Kart video that I released kind of recently, that one was 6. So, this might be multiple videos, and if it's not, we gonna be here a while. Right, so I'm sure at least one of you put this on in the background and skipped over the warning, so I'm going to go ahead and say this one more time. This right here is pretty much the story about me becoming a brony, so if you're not comfortable listening to that kind of thing, I would just skip the video entirely. But if you're even a little bit curious about not just the show, even my own personal growth, then keep watching this, and you might just be pleasantly surprised with what you find. I'm going to be going over a lot of topics involving the show, and if future me is actually, smart enough to remember to make a list of those topics with timestamps, you'll be able to find them in the description below, or they'll be split into separate videos. You've been slacking off on vlog stuff, future me. Yes, I know he knows. As this video goes on, and I imagine, again, this is going to be a relatively long one, since I did write out a script for this, and I don't normally do that for these types of things, I am going to have images from the show, but nothing from the final season, which is still actually going on at the time of this going on, which is Season 9. A little bit of light music as well. Some of it will be pony-related, some of it not. I'm not going to do any fan stuff, just because I don't want to have to worry about getting in trouble with that kind of thing, so it will be from the show if that's the case. And lastly, before we get started, feel free to post in the comments, or just message me privately on Discord, Twitter, whatever the case may be. I'll put those links in the description below. If you're not comfortable with, giving away the fact that you're interested even a little bit in this, because Lord knows I sure wasn't at the start of going into this, if there's really anything you want to know, as long as it's not you suck or any sort of slander or hate against myself or the fandom, because I don't tolerate that kind of stuff, and you guys know that, and you're pretty good about it, so I'm not too typically going to be worried about it. But all those links will be in the description, and I'd love to be able to help in any way if it's, something that can just be a journey for growth for you, because it's definitely uplifted me in ways that I did not even think were possible. So, it's been quite the journey, and I can say this entire show, the fandom, everything, has definitely made my life just that much more of a wonderful experience. I have almost nothing at all bad to say about this fandom, There's a few stragglers here and there, but every fandom's got that. But almost everybody in the fandom that you meet, 95% of them, 99% of them even, they're all wonderful people. Part 1. The Journey. So, my journey into the world of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. It was a bit of a ride. I'd have to say that for all the bad luck that I have on my channel doing video game stuff, I feel like it all got counterbalanced and then some with the luck that I had in being able to integrate into the fandom, just in general and also when I did. And I don't personally think this fan base for the show is gonna just up and disappear after the show ends, officially. But the important thing to know starting out was this. I was about 17 years old when I first found out about the show, and it was also during summer, so I'm still in high school at this point. And I was also incredibly bored, as a lot of people often are in high school during the summer, even when you're working a job. I'm working a part-time job, the one I still work now, and so, sometimes you just have months that are dull. You're not doing anything. As a side note, since I'll be mentioning this, knowing what episodes had, just come out is actually a really good way to keep track of things if you're in the fandom at this time, because you can pinpoint things incredibly accurately. I know what episode came out the week that I started watching, and so I can pinpoint it down to, a 7-day window, which is really cool, because that was 7 years ago. I mean, this, for me, was at the start of 2012. I was going into the second half of my junior year of high school at the time, and this was the point where I was pretty much homeschooled completely. I'd gone from private school to just doing homeschool for a lot of reasons, and honestly, that's another story for another day. Nothing serious, and now I can honestly just look back on it with a laugh. And no, I was not the only person to switch to doing that. In fact, a lot of people in my high school did, so it wasn't just my problem. So, anybody that knows me from the days of YouTube back then, this would be around the time that I was playing Paper Mario 64 for my playthrough. Might know, and yes, I did check that, by the way. You might know that I joined a collaboration channel, which I believe, I don't remember if I came up with it or somebody else did, but I know I was definitely involved in the idea. and it was called the Let's Players. It might still be around, but no, that was not my name choice. The idea is basically we had a bunch of small YouTubers that all did Let's Plays, and we could work together and do different stuff, do races, do collabs, that kind of thing, and boost up our view count by getting people from each individual's channel to go to other channels, so kind of make a little bit of a project in helping increase the view count, increase the subscriber count, that kind of thing. And it was kind of fun. It really only helped in a minimal way. But there is an important thing about bringing this up. Really, the reason I bring this up is because there was one person in particular that I spent a lot of time hanging out with, for two big reasons. One, he was around my age. I think he's like a year, maybe a year and a half older than me, but not that much older. And he also had a good microphone, because this was back in the days when a lot of people didn't have great microphones. Keep in mind, Let's Plays were still relatively new at this time, and so, you know, people just didn't have good microphones, and he was one of the few people that did. And also I was adopted by said extrovert, because for those of you that have not seen the meme of it, it's basically extroverts will adopt introverts. The idea of, they'll get you to come out of your shell a little bit more if you're introverted, so me being the introvert, he being the extrovert. That person was, he probably won't mind me saying this. If he does, I guess I'll bleep it out later. That's future me's problem, though. That person was Cabral95, and unsurprisingly for the story, he had already gotten into that community for a fair amount of time. I don't know his exact date of getting into it, so you'd have to ask him. Now, the Brony community was a perfect fit for somebody like him. He is 100% a social butterfly, still is, and comes off as, like, a completely natural spokesperson like me. Like, I God he doesn't hear this, because I'll never hear the end of it. He is incredibly smart, he takes the lead when he needs to, he is quiet when he needs to be, he is adaptable to situations, he is hardworking. I barely hear from him anymore just because he's hardworking, but we're still friends. He's also a little low-key stubborn, which can be far more effective than the try the patience of a stone stubborn. Like, you know, just kind of gently poking. And pretty much the only quality I had at the time was the ability to listen without any real judgment. That likely came from the issues of taking care of my mom, because keep in mind, that had been going on for about 3 years at this point. I was about 14 when I started doing that, but we'll get to that part of the story later. The thing I don't know is if he was just trying to get a friend of his into something he enjoyed, or if he actually knew to some extent that the show and the fandom could help me grow. I mean, it might be a little bit of both, but it would not honestly shock me at all if he was secretly some sort of genius mastermind either. But he poked me about it a few times, highlighting a few scenes, and we'll play those in the background right now if future me actually remembered to put those in there. That he showed me in particular. And yes, by the way, these are actual things that happened in the show. These are not made up by the fans. This stuff actually happened. And keep in mind, by the time I started watching, the first 2 seasons were done, and the third one will be coming out in November. Again, this is the summer at the time. So, yeah, I was seeing stuff like this in just the first 2 seasons. Keep in mind, we're on season 9 now. So if nothing else, it gave me a little bit of a laugh to see the mental image of the quote-unquote girly show. But now it's got things like bears getting the crap kicked out of them, references to Lord of the Rings? Like, what? And, you know, sure, kids' shows have gotten better now about making things more family-friendly, you know, so the adults can actually watch the show rather than just pretend to watch it and not really care at all. But the point was I could actually see the appeal for some people. So being socially awkward, well, more socially awkward then than I am now, meant I did a really poor job about deflecting these kinds of conversations, and he actually, again, does a pretty good job of knowing when to back off from pressing. So time went by, summer's come around, and as I mentioned, I got incredibly bored that year. Been working at my job for about 9 months at that point, but they don't really have a lot of work during the summer. I mean, we work with students, so there's some summer courses, but not as much as you would get in the actual school semester. So, as a result, not as much work time. So, one night around June, nothing was really grabbing my attention to do. Any gamer knows the unfortunate issue of all these games, and I don't feel like playing any of them. So I ended up just deciding, might as well pull up the first episode and just watch. So, the all-important question here that anyone would ask would be like, why? Why did you even start watching this? Now, sometimes there'll be something about the show that another person pointed out, maybe they ran into some great art or music, because there's a ton of phenomenal art and music around the internet from the show. For me, part of it was boredom, but it took a long time to see that it was a lot more than that. This is a really important thing for any bronies out there to remember. You really do need to just shine your light out there. You have to show that the show itself makes you happy, if you're comfortable doing that kind of thing. Others out there want to find happiness in some way. The world of Equestria is a really happy place. I mean, largely, you know, you have to have your villains and all that. But it's the type of place that people would love to go to in, like, the afterlife or just to escape. It's an outlet, and it's an outlet for creativity and stress as well. But beyond that, it's a place that, again, largely you can go to and not be judged negatively. You know, we do our best to forget about, in our own isolated world, i.e. the mind, that we can be lonely. A lot. And it's really hard to accept that no matter how much we want someone to completely understand us, they'll never be able to do so. But we also forget that every other person goes through that exact same internal struggle. And that's what it boiled down to. I was just lonely. I wanted something different and new in my life, even though I didn't realize it at the time. The closest I'd probably ever felt was like waiting for a new adventure game to come out, like a new Zelda game. I was ready for that new adventure, and nothing else was really filling that void at the time. And for me, this is what it was. So I'll talk about why the fandom is different from others later on, but it's important to note about how important that lack of judgment from other people is. Most people here have had some sort of secret in their lives, and sometimes secrets get turned loose. But for anyone who's admitted a secret and been met with complete acceptance and understanding knows, little else is going to throw you for a loop quite like that feeling. Now, imagine you could do that with just about any secret within the limits of legality. Not just the I'm struggling with light topics either. Like finding out your sexuality, having to deal with the deaths of people close to you that you cared about, having to make decisions in your life that nobody should ever have to make, thinking about how the clock is counting down on your life, and on top of all that, pushing people away without even meaning to, but they just keep inviting you back without any hesitation. Those are things that people in this fanbase have done, not just for just myself, but I'm sure they've done it for other people. You too could be the phrase of this decade if we were honestly just capable of opening up to each other. For being an entire race of mankind, we seem to just forget that whatever we're going through, even if we can't fully grasp someone's situation, someone out there has gone through something similar. Someone out there can help, and sometimes we're just lonely and afraid to reach out. And with this fanbase, our group doesn't feel lonely. People in this fanbase aren't afraid to reach out, and the reason for that is because we don't have to live in this constant fear of being found out, about being afraid of what we might find. Well, this took me years and years to figure out for myself and come to terms with, and normally I hate hearing speeches like these, so it's a bit odd I'm giving one now. That was what pushed me to watch the show. It was going back to lighter things. The first night, I watched the 2-part pilot episode and 2 more episodes after that. I didn't, and honestly still don't at that point, consider myself hooked, because I'd watched enough TV shows to know pilots are not very good indicators of shows. I mean, look at Psych, for example. I loved that show until it got late into its life cycle, but the pilot's not great on that one either. But even if I actually didn't like it, I'd have to get a bit more work, invest a little bit more time to know if I truly just didn't care for it. That said, it was also about 4 AM at the time that I finished the last episode, and I also didn't want to get caught watching the show either. Anybody who has been or is a closet brony definitely know this, but past me writing just chuckle about that, now looking around my room, because, let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, at least 11 posters up, and just a bunch of memorabilia from all the conventions I've gone to, all the different things I bought, so now it is very much a pony-related room. So the next night I started a little bit earlier, probably around 10 PM instead of 1 AM, and just kept watching. So after the first few episodes, I'd already found characters that I just identified with really well. And initially, the first 2 that came to mind immediately were Fluttershy and Twilight. Twilight's the main character of a lot of the early parts of the show, and she struggles to get a lot of work done in the first episode, i.e. finding more about the villain of the first episode, because everybody else, or rather every pony else, just keeps getting in the way. And anybody who has been on this channel for any amount of time knows that has been a struggle since this channel started, and still remains a problem to this day. So already this one has my sympathies. Fluttershy was more of a case of simply just having similar personalities, though I don't really see us being that similar anymore now that I've changed this much from the show. When I get pushed hard enough, I do have the capability to stand out, but usually it's, you know, like watching some sort of injustice, like someone get bullied, which will make me kind of angry. But I also have the aspect of not speaking in a group, or even one-on-one, unless it's, you know, important or something to contribute to the conversation. And I'm quite comfortable with silence, unlike many people are. And as a result, I get some enjoyment of, you know, kinda just torturing people with silence. So a quick set of notes on the thoughts of the other main 6 characters for me at the time. Applejack seemed to be the standard only sane man, or only sane mare in this case, most of the time, which is, you know, kind of nice to see combined with country, since usually when you think of a country-based character in a cartoon, it's either a redneck, a moron, or both. And as somebody who is from the country, no, I don't think that's a fair stereotype at all. Rarity pretty much at the time felt like she was nothing but a drama queen, but had a really good voice actor, just didn't care for her character. Pinky, I felt like I wanted to like her, but just couldn't get past all the girliness of all the pink and all the singing, you know, all the time. As for Rainbow, yeah, didn't like her at all. Still on the fence about her in early seasons, but she's definitely grown up quite a bit. And thankfully, my opinions of all 6 of these characters have changed, and it's all been for the better. So back to the timeline. Bearing in mind I was pretty much binging the episodes, without realizing it, what really stood out during Season 1 was namely the mental breakdowns of the characters. Again, these should be going on screen right about now. We're not talking, oh, I lost my favorite set of shoes. We're talking, are you okay? Not exactly what you'd expect from a little girl's cartoon at all. I mean, they grab the attention, that's the idea, sure, but they're also worth a bit of a laugh since there's a good chance they'll turn out okay by the end of the episode as opposed to somebody, you know, actually going insane until the end of time. Standout episode would probably have to go to Party of One, and the standout quote from there would probably have to go to,
I'm just glad I haven't been replaced by a bucket of turnips.
Yes, that is an actual line. Play it now, future me. In fact, I actually still use that line in university sometimes just to see the reaction of pure confusion. Pure confusion was kind of what endeared me initially to Pinky by the end of Season 1, actually. So moving on to Season 2. So, Lesson 0, that's a thing that happened, didn't it? Cabral had mentioned this episode a lot to me. In short, for those that don't know much about the show, here's a quick rundown. Twilight needed to make some friends in the first episode to be able to save Equestria and learns that she also needs friends to live a more complete life. She used to live in Canterlot studying under her mentor, Princess Celestia, and after the pilot ends, Celestia has Twilight move to Ponyville and send her reports of what she learns about being a friend while living there. In Lesson 0, Twilight had apparently thought she had to send letters at least once a week, and she's about to miss the deadline, so she tries to look for a lot of problems, can't find any, so when that fails, she decides to create a problem to solve it, which is not a good idea. Don't do that. You're seeing it on screen right now, but it kind of has to be seen to be believed, honestly. This might have been the first episode I actually talked a bit out loud while the episode was playing, and yes, that is an important note for later, so bear it in mind. And I still wasn't, again, much for sappy endings, and while a lot of episodes do have that, I just kind of ignored them and kept going on. Again, Season 2 was done by this point, and Season 3 had not yet been out. So I've watched about 30-ish episodes at this point, and we reached the moment where I realized I was completely and utterly hooked. And yes, it did take me that long. I don't claim to be smart, you know. Season 2, Episode 14, The Last Roundup. Short summary, once again, for those of you not in the know. Applejack goes to a rodeo competition out of town to bring back money for her town and for her family, but she doesn't come back, and I'm not going to say why in case someone hasn't seen the episode. So the rest of the main cast go to track her down in the town where the rodeo was. As a quick reminder, I'm 17 at the time and still think bathroom humor is hilarious. I mean, if done right, it still kind of is. On the way there, Pinky is clearly trying to hold it in while they get to town, and makes a beeline for the bathroom, which is actually occupied by Applejack herself, i.e., who they're looking for. Momentarily forgetting about the bathroom, she starts jumping back to the group, chanting, I found her, over and over, before crossing her legs, saying, be right back, and dashing off screen. Between these two lines of dialogues, I said out loud into my room, with no one there, mind you, what happened to the whole bathroom emergency, and then laughed. So, remember that whole thing about making a note of me talking out loud when watching something? When I do that, it means I'm invested, and this time I actually realized I said something out loud, and therefore I realized I was investing. It was probably the single greatest moment in my life. All it's missing is Darth Vader screaming no. So I finished the episode, head to bed, and then the next night when Cabral and I were chatting, I let him have it. Probably yelled at him for about 45 minutes, maybe an hour? I mean, I wasn't actually all that mad. I mean, like, dude, it was my fault, hello. But I gave him the old, you've ruined my lifeline, mostly in jest. Turns out the opposite is pretty much what ended up happening. Anything but ruining my life. It was at that point I just got hooked into all of it. I caught up to where the show was and started going through the fandom, which we'll have more detail about that later, and meeting people online who had also really taken to the show. This was about the time where it really started to get into the swing of the fandom becoming really big. Maybe a little bit earlier than this, but I wasn't, you know, way off on the timing or anything like that. And even if you are, you can still definitely enjoy all the stuff that people are creating. Heck, I'm still creating content for it. Honestly, by the time that Season 4 had gotten in swing, I was just openly watching the show in the living room. I just completely stopped caring if other people knew about it. The fact that it took only 2 years by my standards is lightning fast. I've always said that one of man's greatest abilities is to just not give a crap sometimes. Sometimes. It seems like man either cares way too much or not enough. I went to a few conventions with friends that I'd met over the years. In August 2019, I actually flew by myself to Baltimore. I'd never flown outside of Texas by myself, never flown by myself really anywhere other than California, but I'd at least been there before. I'd never been that far northeast before. That's something the old me could have never done, just in terms of taking like any sort of risk like that. And granted, the trip didn't go perfectly, not with the convention, but just the fact that one of my flights got canceled. But it felt like an adventure. It still did. After all that time, it still felt like an adventure. And today, I honestly can't imagine life without the show. There's no doubt this show has given me a much brighter future, helped me grow mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And honestly, this show has probably given me at least another 40 to 50 years worth of my life to look forward to. So with that, that's the basic story of my introduction to the world of My Little Pony.